Everybody, it's Karel here. Tonight we will be doing a webinar on our additional advisor, how to use it, and the watch list, as well as our graphs. So as you can see here in front of me, I am on the Sharetrackin website. My username and password has already been filled in. So all I need to do is click on login. Once logged in, automatically you will be on the investment dashboard. So what I am going to do is I'm going to click on analysis. And then I'm going to click on stocks. Then we are going to give the stocks just a chance to load everything. Okay. Once open, you will see that there's a My Stocks and Watch List. If I click on that, on the left-hand side, you will note that there's a table that says stocks, meaning these are shares that I own currently. So as you can see here, I have quite a few shares on there. Then on the right-hand side, there's a watch list. Okay, so these are shares that I'm keeping my eye on. And from here on, I can delete the share from my watch list by clicking on the red dustbin. Let's remove Harmony, for example. Or I can view the share by clicking on the info button. So I click on the info button and automatically it pops up a security details window. From here on, I can see, okay, the company that I'm viewing is Pan African Resources PLC. The code is PAN. It gives me a bit more information around the company. So it gives me a definition of what the company does. It gives me the industry, the sector. If they do have a number, it will give me the number, the fax number, as well as their email address, their residential address, as well as their postal address, and when they have their year end. And also, if they do have a website, it will display here. Next up, I have my director dealings. So here I can see exactly what the directors are doing in the company. So I get the director's name, the date of their shares, whether they buy, whether they sell, or whether they're thinking, which is options, on whether they are going to buy or are going to sell. The volume, so how many shares they bought or sold, the price, and then the company. I have my dividends. So here's my dividends history. So here I can see how much dividends do they pay out, when last did they pay out dividends, okay, and the dividend period. Was it a final dividend or was it in the middle, an interim? Next is my financials. So here I can see the ratios of the company, the income statements versus their balance sheet, and also their cash flow. Next up, I have my market news. So in your market news, you will find all the news in the market regarding Pan-African resources. And if I scroll down now, I'm just going to scroll down a bit. You will note that there is quite a lot of news regarding this company. Okay, so I'm going to click back on info. From here on, I can buy my shares. If we do have some time left tonight, I will go through the buying process as well. Your chart IQ, that's where I view my charting. Okay, the charting tool, this is a smaller view of the chart. This is something that we built. You can add it to the watch list, or you can close your window. So let's say close. Then I have my share filter. And then the one we are going to do tonight, your additional advisors. So if I do click on my additional advisor, it opens up this tab for me right in front of us. So first of all, I have my MACD, which is a moving average convergence divergence. You have your RSI, which is a relative strength index. You have your TFS, TSF, your long, medium, and short. That's your terms. Okay, so you can go and say, I want to look at a share that has a long-term trend. Okay, your SMA, your stochastic oscillator, and the advisor's info. If I click on my advisor's info, I will note that it gives me the advisor's information. In other words, it gives me the MACD. Then it says moving average convergence divergence. It says a MACD is a difference between a 26 and a 12-day exponential moving average. And then it gives you everything. Then it tells you buy when the MACD line is above its signal line. Sell when the MACD line is below its signal line. Okay, so here I can see exactly what's the name. It gives me a definition. It tells me when to buy and when to sell. And then I can just click outside of that block and it closes it. Then I have a reset filter button. So let's say underneath your code or your name or your closing price or your volume, you inserted something and you want to clear that. You must click on a reset filters in order for your table to refresh. Clear advisors, that is when I insert a MACD or a RSI or a long. When they are inserted and I want to remove them, I click on clear advisors. So before I explain the rest, let's just get some shares that pops up. So first of all, we want to look at a share that has a long-term trend. So whether you are a person that buys in and keeps it for a long term, in other words, months, or whether you are a person that does a short-term trading, you can use the long to ensure that you buy a good share. Next up, we're going to insert a stochastic. So your long and stochastic is a share that you can buy now. But always remember, we must go and look at our charts to make sure that it does show you a buy. You cannot base your decision on what your additional advisor is telling you. If I use a long and a RSI, that's more the shares that you would put on your watch list. Okay, because they are close to the buying signal. So I'm going to click on stochastic. Now we just wait for everything to pop up. So before I explain this shares in current holding, shares on watch list, and shares on WSL, I'm going to explain the table first. So first up, I have a company code. Each company on the JSE has its own 3-letter code connected to its name. Then we have the company's name. So here I can search a company by code or by name. I have my closing price. So it's for the previous trading day. But because the markets are closed now, this is today's data. The volume it traded for that day. Underneath my volume, I'm going to insert greater than 100,000. For the simple reason, your volume is the number of shares that traded that changed hands during a trading day. In other words, it's the movement of the company for a specific day, whether they were buying or selling shares. So we want enough movement to ensure that we don't buy into a dead company like Kafka. So as we can see there, the first one there is Kafka Limited, and they have no volume, meaning nobody bought or sold shares in that company. And that is what we want to avoid. So here I'm going to insert greater than 100,000. Okay. Automatically, it filters out as you type in. Then I have my long and my stochastic. So here we have signals sell, hold, and buy. You need 2 of the same signals. Then you know, okay, I am going to buy the share now, or I'm going to sell the share now. But like I said, you must still go and view your graphs. So underneath long, I want to share with a long-term trend that's showing me a buy currently. And the same on the stochastic. I wanted to show me a buy. So for that reason, I type in buy. Now, if we look underneath the codes, you would note that some of the codes are in white, some in blue, and some in orange. So this brings us back to these three colors on top. First of all, shares in current holdings. So like Impala, Goldfields, Harmony, and SSW. I own that shares. That is the reason why that code is being displayed in blue. To tell you, listen here, you can go and look at these shares again because they are showing you a buy, but remember you already own this shares. Shares on watch list is that orange color, meaning I have PAN on my watch list. Shares on WSL, let's say for example, Anglo Gold Ashanti is on the Guru's winning shares list. Then it would display a red asterisk behind the code, around about there. It would display a little red asterisk. Now, from here on, I can go and look at the shares. So whether I want to do a fundamental analysis which is your director dealings, your dividends, your financial statements, your market news, or whether I want to go and do a technical analysis, which is opening up my charting, looking at my moving average, my stochastic, and my RSI. So I'm going to do a technical analysis with you. Let's use SSW as an example. So I'm going to click on that share. It opens up the security detail window for me. From here on, I want to go and view my charts. So I'm going to say chart IQ. I click on it. So it should open up your charts. If you already inserted your moving average, your RSI, and your stochastic, it would look like this. But if not, I'm going to show you how to insert this. Most of the time, you insert everything into your graphs, and for some or other odd reason, you get back to your charting again in 2 days' time or whenever you have time again, and your graphs looks like this. That means that somewhere you either have a program like your antivirus or a CCleaner, or you are a person that clears your browsing history. That will remove your moving average, your RSI, and your stochastic, everything you did on your charts. That will be removed then, as soon as your browsing history is cleared. So if we want to insert the moving average, first of all, I'm going to go to Studies, Moving Average. The period here, I'm going to change to 200 for the simple reason, if you go and look, your strongest and weakest stocks is based on a 200-day moving average. Okay, so this gives you an average price over the past 200 trading days. And then I just say create. Automatically the red line appears. I have my average price and the current price. So what's the first thing I can see here? This share is above average. The second thing I see is my moving average is moving upwards. So this moving average gives you a more smoother indication of where the share is heading. Whereas if you insert a moving average that has lesser days, in other words, a 50 or 100-day moving average, your moving average would more likely be closer to your actual graph. So in other words, it would follow this trend exactly, more or less. So it would come up, fall, come up, and as the share falls and climbs each time, your moving average would move. So we want a more smoother indication to see. Then, if I use this minus button, I can zoom out to see what the share has been doing over a long term. And also note that here is the beginning of this share in 2013. If I look here, so since roughly about 25 July 2018, this share has been climbing. In other words, it's a good share to look at. But always remember to fall back and go and look whether Maxima didn't give you a warning about a specific share. That is in her webinars she does every Tuesday and Thursday. I know that last week she did caution webinars where she warns you against specific companies and tells you when it reaches this price, it will continue dropping. So always look out for that caution webinars as well. But she doesn't just give you bad news, she gives you good news as well. She will tell you, go and look at these shares, wait for them to be at this price, then you can go and buy those shares. Let's use the plus button and zoom back in. I can see this is a good share. I go to studies, I insert my RSI. I change my period to 3 days to get my most accurate reading on the RSI. Because if I have a 14-day RSI, let me just change the period here and show you that if it's a 14-day RSI, it's relatively consistent. So I don't get buying or selling signals. And for that reason, we don't use 14 days on your RSI. I'm changing it back to 3. Automatically, you will see these gray areas at the bottom and at the top. So if I look on the right-hand side of my RSI, there's an 80 and a 20 line. So if I look at the graph, when the line goes below 20, it's gray. And when it goes above 80, it's gray as well. Let's take it there, for example. When your share is below 20, it means that this share is oversold. And at that stage, it's at its cheapest price. At that stage. And that's when you want to buy. Because when a share drops, it must go back up again. But my RSI only gives me an indication of, listen here, this share is low currently. You can look at a buy, but use your stochastic as a confirmation. Now, if I use that specific date, 19 March 2020, that share was low. Between your 20 and your 80 area, you would see this line climbs and this line drops. So that's where your movement takes place. Above your 80, that is your overbought area. In other words, at that stage, that share is expensive. And like the saying goes, what goes up must come down. So now it's high. Now it must come down sooner or later. And what did it do? It did drop a bit and it climbed again. So if you are someone for a shorter term, you would have bought maybe there and sold there. Maybe bought there again and sold there again. Or maybe if you wanted to play it safe, you would have sold there. So that's the RSI. Now I want to confirm the signals my RSI gives me. And for that reason, I go to Studies, Stochastic. I leave my period at 14 and I say Create. Now, you would note that your stochastic also has a 20 line, which is roughly there, and an 80 line, which you can see there. So they work on the same principle. Below 20, oversold, 20 to 80, hold on to your share, 80 to 100, overbought, meaning high, expensive, more your selling area. But the difference between the two is that your RSI only has one line, whereas your stochastic has two. So your black line, that is your stochastic itself. The red line is called the signal line. So when we read the advisors, they tell you buy when your stochastic is above its signal line and sell when your stochastic is below its signal line. So in other words, the red line. You would also see that these two lines do cross at some points. If we go back to our example here on the 19th, I would not have bought there, even though it did cross and it did show me its low. It was dropping there, so it crossed. It climbed and it crossed again. So what's the next move? This share is going to drop. So it dropped a bit. There I would have bought on the 23rd of March. Now this share is climbing, and there above my 80 mark, my stochastic crossed again. And there I would have sold. Okay. Let's go and look at today's data, which would be on the right-hand side there. If I look at today's data, I would note that my candle is red. In other words, the share dropped. My RSI is flat and my stochastic crossed again to show it's going to drop. In other words, this would be more likely a share to put on your watch list than a share you want to buy. Now, I want to go back to the share tracking software. Let's add this share to the watch list. I'm going to close the tab on top on the X. And I say add to watch list. I scroll down a bit and I say submit. So I can add a reason, but it's not necessary. I say submit. It gives me successfully added watch list entry. I can go close. And when I refresh this page, so usually how I refresh this page is by clicking on heat map and then back on stocks. Just a side note on the additional advisor. It is a pretty good advisor to use. But the question I do get a lot is, can you save your values that you inserted? The answer is no. Unfortunately, you must insert these values each and every time you go onto the additional advisor. Now I'm going to click on stocks. Sorry, I'm going to click on heat map. I'll wait for the heat map to load. And then I click on stocks. I'll wait for it to load. There's a little window that will pop up here, applying filters. You know everything is there. You can start using it. You go my stocks and watch list, and down there is SSW. And that is the session for today. Join me next week, Tuesday, between 1 and 2:30, and I will go through the buying process with you guys. In detail, I will show you how to buy a share, how to add your stop losses, and how to sell shares on the share tracking software. So you guys must have a lovely day. Anyone who has questions are more than welcome to stay behind. Those of you who do not have questions may then exit the webinar. Lovely day, guys.